Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and today we are going to get into collision detection with our Pac-Man game. So finally, we are going to figure out a way to make it so that Pac-Man can interact with the ghosts, and the ghosts can interact with Pac-Man. So in this tutorial, we are mostly going to concentrate on the ghosts being able to detect when they collide with Pac-Man, so that when they're in frightened mode, they will change to a new mode called consumed, which then changes their animation to basically just a set of eyes. And once they're in that mode, they are going to try their best to get to their ghost house as quickly as possible so that they can regenerate into a ghost and go back into the game board to get back in the game. So there are a couple things we have to do first, and this is mostly just a little bit of cleanup, because what we did in the previous tutorial, if you'll have a look, I'm going to press play here, and what will happen is we'll grab this pellet, and the ghosts turn blue, so they're in frightened mode. Now, before they turn to their normal color, we're going to grab a second pellet. Not only does that extend the timer like it should, it makes them blink and then turns them back into frightened mode. Okay? And then they're going to blink again and they're going to go back into frightened mode. And they're just never going to go back to their regular ghost mode. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add some logic in the ghost script. So let's open up the ghost script. All right. And if you look here, we've got our change mode. Okay. And that's our method that gets called when the mode changes. Okay. So then the first thing we do is, if the current mode, the mode that we're in right now, equals mode.frightened, then we're going to change our move speed to the previous move speed, okay? Because we're changing back from the frightened mode. So we want our normal move speed, okay? If the mode that we're changing into, which is M, is equal to mode.frightened, then we're going to want to set our previous move speed to the move speed, to our normal move speed, okay? So because we want to store what our previous move speed was, so that we can switch back to our normal move speed when we get to this point, when we're assigning previous move speed to move speed, okay? And then we set move speed to the frightened move speed, which is the speed at which they're supposed to move when they're in frightened mode, okay? And then finally what we're doing here is we're setting our previous mode equal to the current mode. So the mode that we're currently in, we're storing that in a previous mode variable so that we can keep track of which mode we were in. So if we were in chase mode or scatter mode, so that once we get out of frightened mode, we know which mode to go back into, okay? And then we set current mode equal to M. So whatever our mode is going to be, we're going to set that to whatever M equals. And then we update our animation controller, okay? So the problem with this is, let's say that we're in frightened mode because Pac-Man got a pellet. So we change mode to frightened mode, okay? So we go through this. We say, okay, change mode equals frightened mode. So then we're in frightened mode, right? So we're going to go ahead and say current mode is equal to frightened. Oh, so, well, let's see. All right, so first of all, we want to change our mode to frightened mode, okay? Our current mode currently doesn't equal frightened mode. Okay, so we're going to skip over this because our current mode is probably either chase or scatter, okay? So we get down to this next if statement. Then we say, okay, well, if M equals frightened mode, which it does because we're changing into frightened mode, then we store our move speed and previous speed, and then we set our move speed to frightened mode move speed. And then we're going to go ahead and save our current mode, right? Current mode, which equals either scatter or chase in the previous mode, and then we're going to set current mode equal to M, which is frightened. Now, before the ghosts get a chance to switch back to either scattered mode or chase mode, we go ahead and grab another pellet. So we say, okay, we'll change mode, M right? M is going to equal frightened mode again. So then we're going to say, okay, well, if current mode equals frightened, which it does, we're going to set our move speed equal to the previous move speed. Well, the previous move speed, right? What does that equal now? The previous move speed equals whatever our move speed was. So we set that to be our move speed. And then we check to see what M equals right now. Well, M equals frightened also. So we were in frightened mode and we're going to go into frightened mode. So then we say, okay, well, previous move speed should be move speed. And we say move speed should equal frightened move speed. So we're changing move speed back to frightened move speed. See the problem here? Not just that, we go to previous mode equals current mode. Well, previous mode right now equals either chase or scatter. Once we do this, we set previous mode to frightened mode. And then we set our current mode equal to frightened mode because that's what we're passing in. So now our current mode and our previous mode both equal frightened mode. So even if we want to change back, right? So let's change mode to whatever, not frightened or chase. If we set that, okay, we're going to set our previous mode equal to current mode being frightened mode, and it's always just going to go back into frightened mode. It's always going to be frightened mode, okay? So what we need to do here is we need to put a check here. We need to say if current mode doesn't equal M, okay? So basically what we're doing is we're checking to make sure that our current mode isn't frightened, because we only want to overwrite previous mode if our current mode isn't frightened mode, okay? So we only overwrite previous mode if our current mode isn't the same as the mode that we're trying to change to, okay? I hope that makes sense. So now if we go back in, let's save this, go back into Unity, we press play. Now if we go and grab this pellet, I'm going to wait for another ghost to come out. Right. So now when we grab this pellet, they're in frightened mode. Then we're going to grab another pellet. And they blink. And they go back to normal mode. Now the problem is going to be the fact that you noticed how when I grabbed this pellet, they started frightened mode. When I grabbed the second pellet, it should have started frightened mode over again so that we have just enough time in frightened mode grabbing this pellet as we did when we had this pellet. So what we need to do is in our start frightened mode method down here, okay, right before we change mode to frightened, we're going to set the frightened mode timer to 0. Okay, so that the frightened mode timer at 0, which is being used right here, is going to start incrementing by time.delta time again, starting at 0, okay, and not at whatever it already was before we start frightened mode again. So if we start frightened mode again, while we've already started frightened mode, let's say we're 5 seconds in, we start frightened mode again, mode didn't really change, okay, frightened mode timer is still at what it was, and frightened mode timer doesn't get reset until the frightened mode timer is greater than or equal to the frightened mode duration. So we want to make sure that we reset that timer every time we start frightened mode, even though we're already in frightened mode, so that we get that extra time. Alright, so if we save that, and then go back to Unity, let's press play. Now you should see the effect that we're looking for, which is that we're going to grab this first pellet. Alright, so that starts our frightened mode timer. And then once we grab the second pellet, it restarts the frightened mode timer. So now we've got that whole set of time again. Then they're going to start blinking. And then after that, they're going to turn back to their normal ghost self. Alright? So, now that we've got that covered, we're good. We're good up until that point. Okay? Now what we need to do is we need to work on collision detection. And believe it or not, this is actually going to be the simplest part of what we're going to be doing today. So let's go ahead and get started with that. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new method. We're going to call it check collision. Okay. And then just so that we don't forget, let's go into the update method, and we're going to call this check collision method. Okay? And then in the check collision method, the first thing we've got to do is, because what we're going to be using is overlaps, what is that? What did I call it? Yeah, it's just overlaps. And overlaps is a method that can be used with rects. So basically what we're going to check is if one rect overlaps another rect. Well, the first thing we need to do before we can do that is generate some rects that we want to use. And so what we're going to create here is we're going to create a ghost rect and a Pac-Man rect. So we're going to create a new rect. So we're going to say rect ghost rect equals, and we're going to do new rect, and for a new rect we're going to use let's see here, to source, we're going to use position and size. All right, so we're going to do transform dot position, and that's going to give us the position of the ghost, because you know the ghost is constantly moving, and that's why we have to create these rects in check collision. And we could create them in a start method, but then they'd only get updated once, and they wouldn't work because they would only get the initial position, but not every position on updates. So we need to constantly regenerate these rects so as to get an actual position. So now for the size, we're going to do transform.getComponent sprite renderer, and we are going to get sprite.bounds.size, and we're going to divide that by 4. All right. And the reason, all right, so what we're doing here, first of all, is the transform, of course, is the ghost. We're going to get a component of that, which is the sprite renderer. Okay, so the sprite renderer of the ghost game object. And then we're going to get the sprite, which is the actual graphic. And then we're going to get the bounds of that sprite. And we're going to get the size of those bounds. Okay, so that's going to tell us the width and the height of our ghost. And then we're going to, and what that would do is it would generate a rectangle around our ghost, the size of our ghost. Okay, so we would know the actual size. But since we want to allow the ghost to be somewhat inside of Pac-Man, so let's imagine Pac-Man here and the ghost here. We don't want a collision to occur like right at the edge. We want the collision to occur somewhat around the middle, you know, somewhere in the center, because we want them to be literally on top of each other almost before the collision is detected. All right? So we divide the rectangle by 4 so that the rectangle is actually tiny. So imagine, let's see, we've got this, and we've got this. All right. So let's imagine that this is the size of our ghost, and this is the size of our rectangle in our ghost. No, it's a circle, but that's the rectangle in the ghost. So the collision wouldn't be detected at the edge of the square of the rectangle. It would be detected on the inside of it. Okay, so that it's a smaller rectangle inside of our graphic. That's where it's going to overlap. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for Pac-Man. So we're going to do rect Pac-Man rect equals new rect, and we're going to do transform.position and transform.get not transform. That'd be the ghost rect or overlapping with itself. That would be Pac-Man.transform.position and Pac-Man.transform.getComponent sprite renderer sprite.bounds.size divided by 4. Okay? So now that we've got these two rects, all we've got to do is create some logic. So we're going to do if ghost rect dot overlaps, and all it wants as a parameter to pass in is the other rectangle. So the other rectangle would be the rectangle that we would want to check if it overlaps with. So we would just do Pac-Man rect. All right, so then basically we're saying what this method is going to do is it's either going to return true or false. And if it returns true, that means the ghost rect is overlapping with the Pac-Man rect. Okay, and that means we have a collision. So we're just, for now, we're going to do debug.log, and we're going to say collided. Okay. So the only time that we should see this output into the console is when Pac-Man overlaps with the ghost. So let's go ahead and save that and go back into Unity and press play. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the console here. And let's clear it. And we're going to wait and see if the ghost actually comes to us. And there we go. See all those collided messages every time the ghost collides with Pac-Man? So now we know when collisions occur. So now that we're aware of collisions, we can actually do something with those. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to do with these collisions is we are going to change the animation states from the for the ghosts. We're going to only change the animation states of the ghosts if they're in frightened mode, because really if they're not in frightened mode and they overlap with Pac-Man, then Pac-Man should die. We're not going to get into that in this tutorial. We're mostly going to focus on the ghosts, like I said earlier. So, let's see here. Alright, so instead of jumping right into the changing the mode for the ghosts, or changing them so that you can only see their eyes and so they go into the ghost house, we should probably do a couple of other things first. Well, the first thing is going to be we're going to have to import some more assets. Okay, so in here, the first thing we're going to do is we've got our background sound, but if you'll notice when you play the original Pac-Man, when you consume a pellet, an Energizer pellet, the background sound changes from this normal sound to a different background sound, okay, to indicate that we've changed modes. So I've prepared this one here. Actually, I didn't prepare it. I downloaded it from the internet, and I'll add a link to the download below. I'm going to go ahead and drag this in. It's just called background frightened, okay? And we're also going to need to add in some more graphics, okay? So we've got Blinky, Clyde, Frightened, Inky, Pinky, and White. So we're going to create another folder in the Ghosts folder here. So we're going to go create folder, and we'll call this Eyes. And in the Eyes folder, we are going to drag, let's see here, where do I have those? Here, and here, and eyes. Okay. So I've got eyes down, eyes left, eyes right, and eyes up, and I'm just going to drag those in. And remember, we have to change all of these. We have to change the pixels per unit to 16, and we have to change the filter mode to point, and we press apply. Alright, and that applied that to all these eyes. And the eyes themselves don't have any animations. The only thing that happens is when the ghost changes direction, when he goes towards the ghost house, the eyes move depending on the direction of the ghost. So we don't have to create any animations, which is cool. So the other thing that we should do while we're in the editor, before we get into any scripting, is, well, actually we do have to do something to the script. So let's go into our scripts folder and go into our tile script, okay? And in our tile script, we're going to add another property, and it's going to be public, and it's going to be a Boolean value, and it's going to be called isGhostHouseEntrance, okay? And let's go back to Unity, and if you'll look, we've got these two nodes here, okay? These two top nodes. And what we're going to use these for, and I'm going to zoom in here, what we're going to use these for is we're going to use them as entrances into the ghost house, so that right now, if you look, we've got 3 neighbors assigned. Okay, so those 3 neighbors are this one, 1, 2, and 3. So the ghost can either go here from this one, here, or here, but not into the ghost house. Well, we need a way for the ghost to actually enter the ghost house. So we need to tell this node that this node here is a neighbor. So the way we do that is we just expand our size for the array. So right now it's 3. So we'll change it to 4, and you'll see that it automatically makes the third element, which is number 4, the same as the previous element, so it's pellet 199. But we don't want to use pellet 199, we want to use this one, which is pellet 212. So we'll go back to this one, and we'll set this last one to pellet 212, which is right here. And we're going to do the same thing for this one. So we're going to say, we're going to go here. We're going to change this to size 4. You'll see this third one is pellet 195, but it should be pellet 206. So we're going to go back to it, and we're going to go here, and we're going to select pellet 206. Alright, and the other thing we need to do for both of these is we need to let the ghosts know that this is a ghost house entrance. So we're going to use that new property that we added to the tile, and we're going to select is ghost house entrance for both of these. Okay. So what we need to do next is, since we've set 2 ghost house entrances, okay, we need to tell the ghosts which one of these 2 nodes is going to be their ghost house, or which is considered their ghost house node, okay? So in order to do that, we need to actually go into our ghost script. So let's do that really quick. We're going to go into the ghost script, and we're going to create another node. So at the very top here where the variables are, we've got starting position and home node. We're going to create a public node, and we're going to call this ghost house. And back in Unity, if you'll see, we've got Blinky and Pinky will be using this node as their ghost house node, which is pellet 206. So let's select Blinky, and you'll see we've got the ghost house property, and we're going to click on this button here, and we're going to select pellet 206. And the same thing for Pinky, pellet 206. And then we are going to, for Inky and Clyde, we're going to select pellet 212 as the ghost house. So Inky, ghost house 212, and Clyde, ghost house pellet 212. Okay, so that's all we're going to do for the ghost house for now. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to add the, so that we can actually have different background sounds playing depending on what mode we're in. Alright, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to add audio clips in our game board. Okay, so we're going to go into the game board script, and we're going to add 2 public variables, and they're going to be audio clips. So we're going to do public audio clip, and we'll call this one background audio normal, and then public audio clip background audio frightened. Okay, so now that we've got that, these 2 properties assigned, we can save that, and we can go back to Unity and go up, well, actually right here at the bottom, and select game, and you'll see we've got these 2 audio clips present, these properties that we can assign audio clips to. So we're going to go over to where our assets are, go to our sounds folder, we're going to drag the background sound onto background audio normal, and we're going to drag background frightened onto background audio frightened. Okay, so now that alone isn't really going to do anything. We need to actually go into our scripts, and then go into the ghost script, and then in the game script, let's see here, actually no, not the game script, in the update method, the mode update method, we're going to go to mode update, and right here where our frightened mode timer is, or not this one, if frightened mode timer is greater than or equal to frightened mode duration, okay, that means frightened mode is over. So we are going to change our audio, and we're going to do this by using background. Sorry, we don't have that created yet, so we need to create this really quick. Okay, so before we do this, we're actually going to need to create another variable. And this one can be private. We'll just come down here and we'll do private audio source equals background audio. And then in our start method, we are going to initialize that. We're going to say background audio equals game object dot find game dot get component audio source, and that is going to be our audio source that we're going to modify. So we're going to scroll back down to our mode update right here in this if statement where we've got frightened mode timer is greater than or equal to frightened mode duration. Knowing that our frightened mode is over, we are going to say background audio dot clip, and we're going to say game object dot find game dot transform dot get component game board background audio normal, because we want to switch to the background normal audio. And then here where we say start frightened mode, we're going to do the same thing, background audio dot clip equals game object dot find game dot transform dot get component game board dot background audio frightened. And we also have to do background audio dot play, because when we're changing audio to the audio source, we actually have to tell it to play. And the same thing up here, we have to say background audio dot play. Alright. And one more thing in the start method, we actually need to do game dot transform dot get component audio source. Alright, so now what should happen if we play the game, our audio source should change if Pac-Man consumes an Energizer pellet. Let's have a look and see how that works out. So in Unity, let's click play. So now we've got the normal audio. And when we collect the pellet, we should get the other one. Yep. So now we've got the other audio source, or the other audio clip playing. And when the ghost changed back, it should change back to normal audio, and it does. Okay. Alright, so that makes the game more fun immediately. And you see how the ghosts are actually going into the ghost house, and they're staying there. That is how that's working right now, because we've now added an extra neighbor to our ghost house. And so the ghosts can go in there, but they can't get back out because they can't go in the opposite direction of what they were going in, which is pretty sad for the ghosts because now they're locked. So that makes the game not so much fun. So the next part, what we need to do is we need to actually add. Yeah, let's go ahead and not fix this ghost house issue yet, but we're gonna make it so that it actually looks like we're consuming the ghosts. Okay. So in the ghost script, we're going to create properties for our for the ghost eyes. All right. So those are going to be sprites. So we're going to do public sprite, and let's call it eyes up. Public sprite eyes down. Public sprite eyes left, and public sprite eyes right. Okay, so now let's jump back into Unity real quick. And if we look at the ghosts, they now have 4 new properties, and we're just going to highlight all of these. So we select the first one, we hold shift, we select the last one, and we can assign graphics to all 4 of these at once. So we can just go in our graphics folder under ghosts, under eyes, we'll grab eyes down, drag it over to eyes down, or we can't. Why not? It's gonna be difficult. All right. So eyes down, eyes left, eyes right, eyes up. All right. Now we're gonna select pinky, eyes down, eyes left, eyes right, and eyes up. So inky, eyes down, eyes left, eyes right, eyes up. Finally, we'll get Clyde, eyes down, eyes left, oops, eyes left, eyes right, and eyes up. Okay. Alright, so now that we've got the eyes graphics, we can add the necessary code to actually make those eyes actually move. And let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so in our Ghost script, all we gotta do is we gotta scroll to our update animation controller method. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna update, actually before we do that, we need to create the new consumed mode. All right, so we're gonna go in this public enum that we've created, the enumeration. And after frightened, we're just going to put a comma and we're going to add consumed. So that is now one of our modes that we can be in. Then we're going to scroll all the way to update animation controller. So then what we need to add is we need to, what we're doing here, first of all, is we're saying if our current mode doesn't equal mode.frightened. That's the only times we want to change our animations, okay? But now that we've got this new mode consumed, when we're only eyes, we also don't want the animation controller to update the animations. So we need to do and current mode doesn't equal mode.consumed, okay? And then at the bottom here, we need to do else if, because now we've got another mode to check, we need to say current mode equals mode.frightened, okay? Then we want to be ghost blue. And then we do else if current mode mode.consumed, okay? And if we're in mode.consumed, we want to set our animator to null. So we're going to say transform get component, get component animator dot, ooh, man, I'm really bad at this now. Runtime animator controller equals null. Okay, so we're setting our animator controller to null so that there's no animation on it whatsoever. So then we just need to check direction. So if direction equals vector2 dot up, okay, then we set the transform, we do a get component of our transform, our ghost. We're gonna get the sprite renderer, and we're gonna get the sprite property and set that equal to eyes up. Okay, simple enough. I'm gonna do else if direction equals vector2 dot down. we'll set transform.getComponent sprite renderer dot sprite equal to eyes down. Else if direction equals vector2 dot left. Transform.getComponent sprite renderer dot sprite equals eyes left. And else if direction equals vector2 dot right. Transform.getComponent sprite renderer dot sprite equals eyes right. And that is the end of that. So now what do we need to do? We need to create an actual method that starts consumed mode. So we're going to do void consumed, and in the consumed method we are going to set our current mode equal to consumed. Oops. Mode.consumed. And that's it for now. Okay. And then in here, instead of using this debug.log collided, we are going to just call the consumed method. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into Unity and press the play button. Now let's see what that looks like. So first I'm going to show you that nothing's going to happen if we collide with the ghosts and they're not in frightened mode. Oops. Aha. First problem. So here, if ghost.overlaps Pac-Man rect, we have to say if current mode equals mode.frightened, meaning that the ghosts are vulnerable, then we can go to consumed. Then we can call consumed. Otherwise, and this is something we're not going to handle yet, but Pac-Man should die. Now, let's go back in and try that again. So we're going to wait. And this time when we collide with the ghost, literally nothing should happen. Okay, nothing's happening. So Pac-Man should be dying, but nothing's happening, because we set it that way. So now we're going to grab the pellet, and now if we eat the ghost, we've got eyes. Although the eyes didn't show up until after they've made a directional change. So what we need to do is we need to also call mode.consumed. Yeah, when we go into consume mode, we probably should update the animation controller. So let's call update animation controller after we change our mode. Alright. So let's give that a shot. So that way, as soon as we collect or consume our ghost, the animation will change. Oh, you're going this way. Alright. See, now they turn into eyes right away. Come on, let me get one. Ah. Okay. So we've got the animation done to basically change from whatever the animation is to be in a consumed state. But what we need to do now is we need to create a variable, because when the ghosts get into that consumed mode, they need to get to that ghost house as quickly as possible. So we need to amp up their speed. So in order to do that, we need to create a new reference variable for a different speed. So let's go back in our ghost script. And up here where we've got move speed and frighten speed, we're going to create another variable. And we're going to call this one consumed move speed. And we're going to set that one to 15F. That's pretty fast. And then we're going to create another variable. And we're going to call this one normal move speed. Because now that we've got, you know, previous move speed. Do we even have previous move speed? Yeah, we do. We've got previous move speed right here. Now that we've got previous move speed, we're keeping track of that, but we also need to know a normal move speed to go back to. Like, no matter what our previous move speed was, we need to have a normal move speed that is equivalent to what we want our move speed for our ghosts to be, so that we can always reference back to this normal move speed if we have to, okay? So, with that normal move speed, we are going to go ahead and go back to consumed, and along with current mode equals mode.consumed, we're also going to change our previous move speed to our move speed, and we're going to change move speed to consumed move speed. So now, after we consume the ghosts, they're going to go much faster. So we can check that if we go into Unity. You're going to see them. They're going to fly around. All right, here we go. See, now they're really fast. But the problem is that they are not actually looking for the ghost house right now. The other problem is that we're turning them back into being consumed if they've already been, or we're turning them back into frightened mode if they've already been consumed. And that's an issue that we're going to deal with in a second. Normally, that shouldn't be a problem, but we need to make it 100% so that the ghost itself, once it's in consume mode, does not turn back into frightened mode, because that's not what we want. We want the ghost to search the board until it can get into the ghost house and then respawn. We don't want it to turn back into frightened mode. So, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create, let's see here, okay. So we're going to create a method down here with our other methods that we use for just getting stuff. We're going to create one, and we're going to call it, we're going to return a game object, and we're going to call it get tile at position, and we're going to pass in a vector2, and we're going to create that variable, and we're going to call it position, POS. And then we're going to do int tile x equals mathf dot round to int. I'm going to pass in position.x, int tile y equals mathf dot round to int position.y. I'm going to say game object tile equals game object dot find. I'm going to find game, get component, or transform, get component, game board, board, tile x, tile y, oops, and I'm going to check and see if tile is null. Actually, if tile doesn't equal null, then we return tile. Otherwise, we just return null. Okay? So now, the next method that we need to create is a pretty big one. And I'm going to create it up here. Right after... Let's do it right after the update method. We're going to call this one check is in ghost house. Okay. And we're going to check to see if our current mode equals mode.consumed. Because once we're in the ghost house, we need a way out of the ghost house. Okay? And if our current mode is mode consumed, that's the only time we want to worry about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a game object. I'm going to call it tile, and we're going to use that get tile at position. And we're going to pass in our position so that we can get the tile that is at our current position. We need to check if tile doesn't equal null. Okay, and as long as it doesn't, let's make sure that it has a tile component. So tile.transform.getComponent tile doesn't equal null. Okay, so that we're sure that nothing equals null, we can then say if tile.transform.getComponent tile is ghost house, we can't say is ghost house because we haven't created that yet. So let's jump into our tile really quick, and we create another property, public bool is ghost house. All right, and then we're going to go into, well, we won't go into Unity yet. We're just going to go in here into our ghost, and we're going to say tile is ghost house. Okay, so basically if the tile that we're currently at is the ghost house, right? So if it is, then we're going to set move speed equal to normal move speed. So we're going to reset the move speed. We're going to say node get node at position transform.look.position, and then we're going to say if node doesn't equal null, because we don't want to assign a null node because that's not going to work. We're going to set current node equal to node. I'm going to set direction to vector2.up because if they're in the ghost house, then they logically will need to move up. I'm going to set target node equal to current node, neighbors, and the only neighbor that the ghost house nodes have is the neighbor that's at the up position, the only neighbor that they have. So we can get the first neighbor, which is the 0 index in the array. And we do previous node equals current node. And current mode equals mode.chase because we want the ghost to start chasing Pac-Man as soon as he gets out of the house. And then we're going to update our animation controller. Alright, let's see, the only thing is, let's see here, previous node equals current node. We're setting current node okay, that's right. So now we can't do anything with this yet. But what we need to do is we need to add a call to this in the update method. So we're going to do check is in ghost house in the update. So it constantly checks to see if the ghost is in the ghost house and if he's been consumed. So if he has been consumed and he is in the ghost house, then he can get back out via this script right here. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is actually we need to create a method really quick that we're going to use in a little bit, and we're going to call this let's see here, we're going to create this after get target tile. We're going to create another method and it's going to return a vector2, and it's going to be called getRandomTile, okay? Because we want to make sure that if our ghosts are in frightened mode, that we make them pick a tile that is random rather than just trying to go to the bottom like they have been, okay? And then we're going to return new vector 2, x and y. Alright, so basically what this does is it creates an x, and that's going to be between 0 and 28, meaning the width of the board. And then we're going to get a y that's between 0 and 36, which is the height of the board. Alright, so we're not going to use this just yet. We are going to create, actually we're going to use it right now, in the choose next node method. So we're going to go to the choose next node. If we can find it. It's here somewhere. Move, mode update, change mode, start frightened, get, release, choose next node. Okay. So we've got if current mode equals mode.chase, we're getting a target tile for that. If current mode equals mode.scatter, we're getting a target tile for that. But right now we don't have anything for if the ghosts are in frightened mode because, and that's why they all go to the corner or wherever their last target tile was. That's where they're going to go. So we're going to do else if current mode equals mode.frightened. Then we're going to say target tile equals get random tile. And then we're going to need to do the other one. So else if current mode equals mode.consumed. Then we're going to set the target tile to transform dot what do we make that? Transform dot oh wait, that's never mind. Ghost house dot transform dot position. Because ghost house is the node that we designated to be the ghost house target for these specific ghosts. So the first thing we can do now is we can actually test this to see if once they go into consumed mode, they actually choose a target tile that gets them to the ghost house. So let's try that. So let's go into Unity, press play. And we are going to wait here. And let's see if this one goes to the ghost house. And it does. Now let's see if we can get the other ones to go. And they both went to the ghost house. And so did this one. Okay, so they all go to the ghost house now like they should. Okay. Now what we need to do though is we need to make sure that they cannot go into the ghost house if they're not in frightened mode. So in order to do that, we need to actually change some other things in our choose next node, okay? So going back in our ghost script, we're in choose next node, all right? So if we look down here, we've got our for loop, okay? And basically what that does is it iterates through the neighbors of the current node, and then it checks the valid directions, and it makes sure that that we can't go into any reverse directions. And then it just happily says, oh, well, you know, if all this is true, then this is going to be a node, and we're going to add it to the found nodes and found directions arrays. And then we're going to say, okay, well, that's cool. We're going to use one of these. Well, we need to know if we're in frightened mode, or if we're in consumed, or yeah, frightened mode, right? That's what we're doing. Mode, if it's not consumed mode. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to say if current mode does not equal mode.consumed, we are then going to get a tile game object using the get tile at position doesn't like the fact that... Alright, let's close the if statement. Alright, so game object tile equals get tile at position, and we're going to do current node dot transform dot position. Okay, so the current node that we're at, we want to get a tile for. Now we're going to say if tile dot transform dot get component tile is ghost house entrance equals true. So basically here we found a ghost house. So we don't want to allow movement. In the down direction. So basically we say if current node dot valid direction I doesn't equal vector 2 dot down. So as long as the valid directions that we're at in the current iteration doesn't equal down, we will allow that node to be a valid move. Okay? So then what we need to do is we need to add in after ghost house true. Alright, so after this we go else. Okay? Because if we're not in a ghost house, right? So if the mode isn't consumed and it's not a ghost house entrance, we want to allow movement the regular way. And then here we've got if current mode doesn't equal consumed, right? We have to say else. We're going to allow movement in any direction, because if we're in consumed mode, right? If this not consumed mode doesn't equal true, then we can go down to this else statement, and that means that we are in consumed mode and we want to allow all movements because we want the ghost to be able to go to the ghost house. Does that make sense? Good. Hope so. So at this point we should be able to we should be ready to go, except for one more do we have to, because we add this is ghost house. Yeah, we have to go back into Unity and we have to go to these tiles and we have to say is ghost house. I have to specify that these are ghost house tiles. Come on. Okay. Is ghost house. Alright. So let's play. So now if I grab a pellet, I can consume them. They should run away into their ghost house. And then come back out. And they are chasing me. Alright, come on guys. Okay. So the only other thing, let's start this game over and then see if this is still an issue. I'm gonna think that it is. And that is I'm going to consume one. And he turned back into a frightened mode ghost. Alright, so we need to set it up so that the ghost doesn't turn into frightened mode if he's been consumed. So, let's go down here to start frightened mode. And we're going to say if current mode doesn't equal mode.consumed, okay, because that's the only time that we want to turn into, that's the only time we don't want to turn into frightened mode is if our mode is currently consumed. So now if we go back into Unity, see if we can catch one fast enough. Ah, damn it. Come on. Come on. Oh, you guys are making it so difficult for me. Alright, this one we're definitely going to be able to get. Ah, yes, it worked. No. Okay. So now we know that works. Alright, so the next parts of this game, since everything is working the way it should, we've got our music done, we've got our animations for the ghosts are done, they change in the eyes, they go to the ghost house, they get back out. The next thing to finish our game mechanic is to actually make Pac-Man die. So, and that's going to be the next tutorial. So the next tutorial is probably going to just be entitled Pac-Man's Death. And in that one, in order to make Pac-Man die, we can't just kill Pac-Man and spawn him back, and because that's not the way that the game works. So the game works this way. The game, Pac-Man collides, Pac-Man dies, he does his whole little death animation, and then the game sort of like reboots. It almost looks like it reboots. So we're going to make that happen. And then once there are 3 deaths, it has to go back to some main menu, which we have yet to implement. We still need to do scoring. And then we still need to do like level. So like once you consume all the pellets, you go to level 2. So we're almost done. We're getting very close, which is really exciting because I'm ready to start something new. Although I love this game, I love where it's going, I love how everything is working, and you know, it's just great. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked the tutorial, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget, comments go down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next week.